Well, as the stage is being set, I'll just take a moment to kind of introduce all our esteemed panelists, and that'll give us much more insight as to who they are and where they're coming from. Firstly, ladies and gentlemen, we start with the 5th Realty PropTech Conclave, which is presented by BLOX, the co-partner being Stallion Buildtech, and the event associate being Strategic ERP. The experts today will share their opinions on growing synergies between technology and real estate, as well as its various stakeholders. The first session of the PropTech Conclave, which we'll explore, would be what's next for PropTech in 2023. A great topic to start off with our entire conclave. I'm going to take a moment to introduce our panelists and, of course, our session chair. First up, starting with the session chair. Somebody who oversees the PropTech verticals of ANAComplex across India, as well as the ANACITY in the Middle East, both of which are smart app-enabled PropTech community management platforms. He's a global business leader with over 22 years of proven track record in international and Indian business leadership and strategy, with wide-ranging experience across various verticals. Ladies and gentlemen, the MD and country head ANAROCK Group Business Services, AnaComplex and ANACITY. It is my honor to call upon none other than Shajai Jacob. Thank you, Mr. Jacob, for joining us and agreeing to be our session chair. Next up is somebody who leads MYRE Capital, a tech-enabled fractional ownership platform by Morphogenesis. Somebody who holds an undergrad degree in networked and social systems engineering and a master's in systems engineering from the University of Pennsylvania. Background in engineering and a keen interest in algorithms and big data analytics, which has helped him envision a robust model that caters to a wide range of audiences. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about the founder and CEO of MYRE Capital, Aryaman. Thank you, Aryaman, for joining us. Next up, we're talking about somebody who spent all her working years building some high-growth startups. In her previous stint, she was a part of the core team at the Moms Co., a digital-first FMCG company heading business operations. Also in her earlier stint, she's worked as an early core team member of one of the globally largest hospitality startup, being Oyo. We're talking about the co-founder of Enlite, Garima, Bharadwaj. Come on, audience, you can be much more gracious with your round of applause. Next up is an architect, member, Naretco, CMD, WA, IGBC India General Secretary, and a co-chairman, Redevelopment Mumbai, somebody who's more than 20 years of experience with more than 150 running projects, working with brands like Godrej, Lodha, Happy Homes, amongst others. We're talking about the co-founder, Stallion Buildtech LLP, and partner, CORP, Milind, Changani. Next up, let's meet a visionary and an accomplished woman leader who's making waves in the Indian real estate industry. As the co-founder and CMO of BLOX, India's first online home buying brand, she's somebody who focuses on the customer-centric brand and a product development leading revolution in the way Indians buy homes. With a background in luxury and tech commerce, her impressive track record includes leading marketing for the largest fashion house in India, the House of Anita Dongre, and prior to that, successfully launched India's first luxury e-gift card with Zokhudu. Let's welcome none other than Shivani Karia-Jhaveri on the stage. And on that note, I humbly welcome all our panelists. We request you to kindly be seated, and of course, our session chair, Mr. Jacob, to take it forth.
Thank you. Am I audible? Yeah. Great. Thanks a lot for the wonderful introductions. I think everyone knows what we do, but I'm going to give each of my fellow panelists a couple of moments to speak about what they do and what differentiates them. But before that, I want to just go into a little background of PropTech. How many of you all know that in 2016, there were just 2 PropTech companies in India. And now there are 1,400. So, and these are just the recognized numbers. And if you look at the PropTech logo on top, where's that logo gone? Ah, it's behind me. If you see this PropTech logo over here, right? What does this denote? What does this denote? Homes. 84% of Indian real estate is residential, under construction, delivered, ready to move, right? But only 13% is of PropTech relates to homes. Only 13%. So technically, there should have been a building over here. Right, so that's an interesting anecdote. I have some more. PropTech companies got funded about USD 1.4 billion over the years, but only 36% of PropTech companies have been funded. So 1.4 billion has come in, but only 36% of companies have been funded, which means the huge scope for investments in this sector. And obviously, with us on this panel, we have 3 generations of PropTech. Don't go by age. Don't go by age. 3 generations. And when I say 3 generations, the first mover in this generation was, of course, Shivani, and the kind of work that she's been doing. Not exactly Shivani, but the category. Right? So like I said, don't go by the person, don't go by the age. This is rental, real estate aggregation, the aggregation home sites, all of that formed the first stage. Then came the second stage, which is construction tech, which is building management tech, which is on the commercial side. So first you sell, you get money, and then you build. Isn't that how real estate works? I mean, you build without selling, you can't build, right? So that's what happened. And then, of course, the poster boy. I mean, the latest, I wouldn't say new kid on the block, but he's the hottest topic, which is, of course, fractional real estate. So here we have, kal, aaj aur kal.
Absolutely.
Yeah? So with that, I'm going to welcome all my 4, founders and fellow panelists to this wonderful session. We hope to make it interesting. I hope I made it interesting with a little bit of anecdotes in the beginning. Now let's see what they have to say. Before that, I'll give them a little bit of spiel, what they do, how are they differentiating, how are they killing in their own space. Shivani, you want to start?
So taking from what you said of Kal Aaj, can you hear me? Better now?
No. Can everyone hear them? No, they can't. Do you want to share that?
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. Now can you hear me? Can you believe tech problems in a PropTech panel? So because you said Kal Aajo Kal, let me give a little bit of an anecdote too. So when you say Kal Aajo Kal, history is a cycle, right? History repeats itself. So while PropTech started with aggregator platforms, today when we are talking about the multitude and different facets of PropTech in be it construction management, be it infrastructure, be it fractional ownership, the one big thing that the consumer has always lacked is that D2C approach where he can buy something online. So coming back to while PropTech started with aggregation, the end of that journey is doing transaction, owning the whole streamlined value chain of real estate, and the customer going to a one-stop shop, one-stop solution to buy homes. In India, before COVID, the number of startups unicorns were a handful. And what we saw with the massive digital adoption is that the startups people identified the problems in the market, went for it and created customized solutions. So in real estate now, all of us here, all of us present here, are now identifying these problems and trying to find creative solutions that end of the day benefit the end user. In our case, it's the customer. In various cases, it's the developer or the tenant. So I think in Kal Aajo Kal, aggregation se chalu hua, but transaction pe khatam hoga.
Fantastic. Milind, quickly, what do you do? What does your firm do? Tell us about its speciality, its unique selling proposition, and how is it making a difference?
Thanks, Jacob. So I think I'm the late bloomer here. I think I'm Milind Changani from Stallion Buildtech. We built this platform, a Stallion, which is like a vertical stack for entire real estate developer business. We've got construction management, sales management, vendor management, permission management, and everything that you can link into the real estate business is built under one stack. So we started this business during COVID, and we started for ourselves, but slowly realized that it's developing pretty well. And the 4 co-founders, are also from diverse fields. Like I'm an architect. I handle the licensing and the other aspects, and we have a design team who handles the construction. We have a developer who's one of the partners who knows the entire nitty-gritties. And we have an IT guy. So all the 4 verticals really help build Stallion a lot. And we've built a platform which is so intuitive and so easy to use, unlike most other competitors that we have in the market, that it's a system which actually just builds in your requirements. So it's quite intuitive, I think, once you have a look at it.
Nice. Though I would shy away from saying we have an IT guy. Yeah. I mean, given the fact that it's so difficult to get IT guys. Okay. So Garima, what do you do? What's the company do? What's the unique selling proposition?
Sure. Thanks, Shajai. I am co-founder of Enlite. We started Enlite 5 years back, and one thing which was definitely rapidly changing in India was urbanization. There was buildings, and only buildings that were coming up. And when you start something, it is not always a personal problem, but a larger problem that you identify and you want to build a solution around it. So there were massive growth opportunities. India was talking more and more about urbanization. In fact, the entire APAC was. With so many more buildings coming up, one thing which would definitely set in, along with so many buildings, would be inefficiencies and wastages. And why does that happen? Because buildings are segregated into 2 parts, grade A and the rest. Now, the grade A has a lot of technological advantages because the people who are building it are much more aware of the systems to put inside them, how to control efficiencies. They go for green buildings and try to at least curb the wastages. But the urbanization was not all about that. It was about tier 2, middle income groups who would be settling down in those buildings. What about them? They don't have affordable technologies to integrate which could optimize these buildings. And for that, we took this problem statement up and wanted to recreate what industry legends like Honeywell, Johnson Control, and Schneider had done for 70, 80, 90 odd years, and make it entirely wireless and next generation. So Enlite today makes a solution which is called Know Your Building, which is an interplay of hardware and software. It is a building management system. I think tech issues are pertinent. So anyway, so what we're doing is creating the world's first wireless building management system for all types of buildings. So from a 5,000 square feet to a 50 lakh square feet, we have tried to capture and are still capturing a lot of market and hope to make the world very urbanized, grown, but a little more sustainable around us.
Nice. I like urbanized and sustainable together in the same word.
Yeah.
All right. Aryaman.
Okay, so we started MYRE Capital about a year and a half, 2 years ago. The reason we started the platform was that, whenever we went and asked somebody, do you invest in real estate? The answer is usually yes, but their categorization of investing into real estate is more often than not residential. Whilst I would say 83% of the market is residential and only 13% PropTech companies are addressing it. But we feel that investors are almost 100% addressing it in terms of the retail segment. Sure. There are a lot of other parts of real estate as well, even from office spaces, warehouses, data centers. More importantly, you can go to the other side of it as well, which is the debt financing side of it, mortgage-backed securities. So, real estate is a very large universe with very little investor access to it. So we started with a vision to basically bring these curated opportunities, structured opportunities to a much larger investor base, a much larger target audience, I would say. And another aspect of this whole thing was that, in other asset classes, like you have equities or gold, you have a investment manager of sorts, you have a fund manager of sorts who's helping you sort of navigate the segment. To some extent, that was sort of lacking on an ongoing basis in the real estate industry, where someone through your life cycle of your investment is with you, on a day-to-day, giving you that expertise that you require to ensure that your asset performs. So that's something we wanted to bring on the table via our platform as well. So via that we've built this investment platform today, which of course has fractional ownership, it has debt, very interesting opportunities, and we are being able to also add value to other parts of real estate. Like for instance, today we work with the co-working sectors to give them debt finance. We work with developers to give them liquidity for their assets. And of course, we work with investors representing them through this whole investment life cycle. So it's a very interesting space, and I think we're just getting started.
Super. So I'm going to have one more general question for all before we get into the specifics of your companies and what categories that you are motoring around in real estate. There's this dichotomy. Technology is changing at a rapid phase. And we see it across. I mean, I was in Dubai for 3 years. Before I left for Dubai, there was no phone pay. When I suddenly came back from Dubai, I figured out that I needed to have an app on my phone which could actually make a payment. And if I didn't have that, I was virtually stranded. I couldn't use anything. So that's the kind of speed of adoption that we are seeing in fintech, we are seeing in some of the other e-commerce sectors. But we're not seeing, and technology is really agile, technology is moving forward, motoring along aggressively, but we're not being able to see that in real estate, and the adoption itself is a little bit of challenge. How do you foresee this? Do you foresee this adoption to increase? Do you find more willingness, or what are the challenges? Milind, you want to go for it first?
Okay. So what we've realized in the real estate market, most developers have not been using technology to their convenience. And one of the reasons is, they find skilled labor at a cost which is much lower than changing their entire systems. But I think slowly people are realizing that as they are scaling their jobs, and if you don't use the right kind of technology in hand, which can give you at the click of a thing, you need to know your business in and out, profit, loss, cost, everything, they will be left behind. So I think it's just a matter of time that we had a fintech boom, we had an education boom, but PropTech boom is in the tunnel.
What about you, Shivani?
I couldn't agree more with him. I think while PropTech is one of the last industries to get digitized, it definitely is going to be the largest revolution in India. Today, when we are talking, the size of the market, right? One of the largest markets, one of the highest contributors to GDP. Now, when technology gets added to the mix here, you increase efficiency, you increase scale, you're able to, today the time to market for developers decreases by the way of all of us here are enabling the developers exactly to do that in a way. And when you put all of this together at an India level, while the adoption of digital, be it digital economy or be it just using tech products, e-commerce, Q-commerce, is on an exponential increase, I think with all these points coupled, PropTech is only going to propel in the next few years to come.
Super. What about you, Garima?
So I would say there was always a lot of friction in the real estate industry. A couple of reasons. It's a $1 trillion industry with probably 1% expenditure on R&D. When you don't spend on tech, you don't build tech. And when you build tech, you're looking at certain small fragments of problem. So people were developing solutions which were catered to very niche problems and hence smaller solutions. With commencement of COVID, I think the market educated itself. With fintech and e-com, the thing was the users were very young, who were very tech savvy. So they would just pick up something digitally and start using it immediately, but the users of real estate were not that young. They were, in fact, very resilient to changes. You suddenly put a system and they are more afraid of it than being pally with it. Now with COVID, people started using all the tools. Our parents' generation started using it, and a lot of people that you see across the spectrum who operate a real estate are of that category. Then they were using the Zooms. They understood remote monitoring could be done. So many things could be done from afar, and it is actually not that difficult. I think that is why a couple of years later today, when we're sitting here and we're talking of the number of PropTech companies, they are only going to increase because the users are no more resilient to change. They're adopting it. They know that, okay, it's not going to cost them jobs. You might get a Gorkha with it. I'm so sorry, don't mind me saying it, because there's somebody who told this to me yesterday itself. But still, using technology is making them more able. They are able to rise along the ladders because otherwise in real estate, there is only a limited skill set that you can enhance. But technology is helping them a lot. So probably, I think in next 2 to 3 years, they want to change. Also, sustainability is thankfully no more a buzzword now. People are doing things about it within the organization because they want to be seen as somebody who changed something in the organization. So I believe it's only going to get better for PropTech from here and have a very diverse user set, which is very unlike e-commerce or edtech that we've seen till now.
Super. What about you, Aryaman?
So I think we're at a very interesting point for PropTech adoption, because I think in any industry, especially in real estate, which is more tangible industry than others, what's very important for all stakeholders to actually get a sense of is the money that they're saving, or how the solutions that these startups are providing, how it's adding value to their current businesses. And this usually, whilst yes, theoretically you can show on a PowerPoint presentation, but I think it comes off much better through track record. So in 2016 there were 2 or 3 PropTech startups, and I think entrepreneurs have done a phenomenal job of demonstrating track record, of showing, how these solutions are going to change the industry for the better, how it's going to save money, even in the shorter run. So now I think that there's actually excitement from stakeholders to adopt these technologies. I think we are coming to a point where we are going to sort of supersede the phase of friction very soon. And we will see a lot of, positive synergy from all stakeholders in the industry as such.
So the conclusion is that it is here to stay. It is going to be encouraging, and of course, we are just seeing the end of that tunnel and into broad basing our services. Fantastic. I have a direct question now for Garima from Enlite. Garima, you're into building automation. I mean, that's the category.
Yes.
I mean, if I understand that correctly. And most commercial buildings are at different life stages, which means that some commercial buildings, possibly like an Express Towers, which is now owned by Blackstone, is possibly 20 years old. And then there is a 1BKC where I work, which is possibly 7 years old, 8 years old, right? And there are various life stages of such buildings. How does your company, or how does building automation fit into this? Is it agile enough to straddle the interplay between hardware and software? Because, I mean, software has to work with hardware.
Right.
Right? And if the hardware is like 20 years old, but your software is like just developed day before yesterday, how do you manage this entire diversity?
I'm glad you asked that, Shajai, because it'll help me explain why we created this company in the first place. So when we started out this company, one part of it was urbanization. But if you look at the emissions that were generated, 60% of them was through the existing buildings. So what do you do about that? You're not going to break down things and say that, okay, let me restart this. So we wanted to build a solution which was modular to begin with, but at the same time universal in nature. Now, universal, one part of it is that it can fit in every building. But what about equipments? Because those get old. The buildings might still stand as beautiful as they are. So we wanted to create something which was vendor neutral and age agnostic. And for that, we took almost 4.5 years to try to create something which did not depend on the age of any equipment or a system, subsystem running inside a building. And in fact, today, that is our USP. So we, as a company, our moat is technology, and we make hardware and software, both. So if there is already a building which is standing, which can only have 2 possibilities, it has very archaic systems which are not integrated together. And one, to create a building management system out of them, needs to first integrate them together. We can very simply connect all of them together using our wireless universal controllers that we have built. And the second case could be, because in BKC we see a lot of good grade A buildings. Now, they might have old building management systems. The problem with them is that when building management systems are put into place, they are never commissioned more than 40%. And then nobody cares after putting it. It's more of a hygiene tick mark. And they keep accruing a lot of AMC cost around it, which nobody feels like paying after 10 or 12 years. In that, you could buy a new system. That's what they say. That is where we again come into play, because using the set and the methods where we have created this universal controllers, we can talk to any existing building management system as well. So it does not matter whether those systems are proprietary or non-proprietary. We can integrate pretty much everything onto our system and add new too. So even after you have integrated your old system and you desire to couple it up with more newer systems, our controller can make the old talk to the new and then manage your entire building. Because we have the own software offering as well, if there's an existing software, we could even integrate that. So the idea is no matter what is the age of your building, your all equipments will always be ready for the future.
So what that means effectively is that just like there are anti-aging skin creams, you're making anti-aging software for building management systems, right?
Hopefully we are, yes.
Yeah?
It's the L'Oreal of the industry then.
Fantastic. See, I told you we could make this panel interesting. So Aryaman, you're in one of the hottest segments, man. Fractional investments, I mean, you're also the youngest amongst all of us here. But fractional investments is here to stay. There are two challenges the way I see it, given the limited experience that I have in real estate. One is inventory, right? How do you convince developers to, partake their valued assets and put it on fractional? And the second is exit. When someone asks me, Shajai, what do you feel about fractional? Should we invest in this building? I'm saying, how are you going to exit, man? How do you exit? You'll buy possibly 300 square feet in a particular building. It's a grade A asset. It's great. It's on Outer Ring Road in Bangalore, and it's RMZ Tech Park. It's, you've got Amazon sitting over there inside. But how do you exit? Which 100 square feet is yours, right? So that's the type of challenge which is there. Now, how do you see fractional investments, not just your organization, how do you see fractional investment circumventing that? Given that there are REITs in the market today, which are viable products, more from an interest and, of course, dividend play, and sustainably that too. And there are large investors who've come out with such, and of course the larger market, and then the traditional Indian that I want to own my own home. So how do you circumvent this challenge? And feel free, you guys, to get in, yeah?
No, absolutely. I think all those are actually the challenges or the key challenges of fractional ownership platforms. But I'll start with the first stakeholder, the most important one, I guess, which is the developer from where we actually source these properties. Why would they sell to someone like us? We do ask for more aggressive terms than an individual investor would, and that's because we do it as a business, right? So the reason is that what's happened in India is that a lot of your funds are sort of buying these larger assets. Individuals are not going out and buying 100 crore assets very often. Even when HNIs do decide to go out and buy properties, it's not a very certain purchase because HNIs are flippant. So, they will go and speak to their family, they'll speak to their friends. Their friends will tell them that, this road is terrible, it floods, and that deal is probably not going to happen anymore. So, it sort of runs a lot on hearsay, and it's not a business of these investors. So, there's not so much reliable capital for developers. When platforms like us come into the picture, the developer knows that this is my business. I need to, on an ongoing basis, buy assets. It's a long-term synergy. And yes, he might have to give us a slightly lower price than what he would otherwise get. But it's also convenience and efficiency for him, right? Once he signs a term sheet with us, he's going to get the money in 60 days, irrespective. So that's why developers have started liking actually working with us. We do get, direct calls now from developers offering to sell the assets to us as opposed to not selling them to us. But yes, when we did start, developers were very, 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 they were like, you're going to list this property on your website. How do we know that, digitally you'll raise money? I mean, if it was so easy, then why don't we do it? But eventually, we found a middle ground with developers. We managed to find that synergy. The second part comes to REITs. REITs were becoming competitive, but I think the budget helped us a lot. They did make REITs a little bit more inefficient, which makes our return a little bit more lucrative. So yes, same asset class, but what I always say is there are different ways of accessing asset class. A REIT is basically a mutual fund equivalent, whereas what we are providing is more hard asset equivalent because you know which property you're investing into, the tenant that's sitting there, the terms. So it's almost like sort of investing into a hard asset. The third part is the exit, and this is actually the cooler part, I would say, for fractional platforms. Now, unlike in traditional real estate where you have to sell the entire property, we allow fractions to be sold or transacted intermittently, so we have a secondary market. And just to give a statistic on it, I mean, we've been able to so far get liquidity for our investors in under 24 hours from them asking for it. So whilst, yes, it's not a REIT listed instrument, but in terms of liquidity, at least so far in practice, we've been able to achieve that parallel. So it's an interesting space, definitely. And I think the secondary market and the liquidity is picking up as awareness and investors sort of continue to adopt this kind of investing framework.
Oh, that's nice. So what you're saying is that developers are more and more open to now hand over their assets at a better price, of course. Otherwise, how will you make money?
Exactly.
And the exit is easier right now, primarily because it's more tech-enabled, more digital, and easier for customers to come in, right?
Yes, so that's one reason why exits are easier, but it's also because we are not going out and selling the whole property. So, when you sell a property, you have to do due diligence. If it's a 50 crore check, you're going to be dealing with a fund who's going to take 3 months. Over here, what happens is, someone wants to sell their fractional shares in an asset. It's a simple share transfer, which happens in under 24 hours. We find them a buyer from our investor circle. So, we sort of are enabling that liquidity through our investor network. So it's very, very easy to transact. And, when you're trying to transact 25 lakhs or 50 lakhs of fractional ownership, it's a very different thing than trying to transact a 50 crore asset.
Correct.
So, the kind of pace that you're able to build in enables that increased liquidity.
So you have digital matchmaking engines within your own data sets, right?
Yeah.
For a supply and demand perspective.
Yeah, in fact, what we do is we keep a wait list on each of our assets. So each of our assets right now has a wait list. So whenever an existing investor wants liquidity, it's very easy for us to sort of matchmake. But yes, we are coming up with a cooler matchmaking platform which will operate like a secondary market. We are trying to create more transactions to sort of simulate equity or unlisted equity kind of market. But that's basically the direction in which we are going. So we are actually focusing a lot more on secondary exits, liquidity, because I think that's what will really change the game.
And Shivani, what do you feel? I mean, you have a aggregation business which is complemented by physical feet on street, a transaction layer, the way I see it. But at some point of time, do you see a merge between fractional investment and, of course, aggregation of physical homes? Do you see a merge, and do you see you yourself as an organization as an early adopter?
Shajai, I think absolutely, because at the end of the day, the key stakeholders are the buyers and the developers, right? So whenever you have both these in a marketplace, you can create an end-to-end solution. Then it doesn't matter if it's primary real estate, secondary real estate, commercial, fractional land, because at the end of the day, it's providing the service and going that extra mile to give, one, satisfaction to the buyer, and two, adding value in the life of the developer that has put a lot of money and effort into it. So absolutely, I think at the end, it's very synergistic.
Yeah.
In a sense.
So possibly the BLOX portal at some point of time will have products which MYRE Capital would have sourced.
100%. BLOX will have everything.
Yeah. Super. Milind, the question for you.
Can I add to?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Spoken. So I think I would love to integrate with both of them. The simple reason is, you see, Stallion has a sale platform.
Sure.
And fractional ownership is actually the future. And right now, I think, if I'm not wrong, fractional ownership is more on commercial markets. Yes. But you see, what all of us miss out here is 80% of Bombay is redevelopment.
Super.
When you demolish a particular building, you need rented houses. There is a huge rented housing industry under fractional waiting for it to be open. Absolutely. So I think an aggregation, a fractional, and a platform which integrates all of us is going to have a huge sense in coming future.
Oh, super. Then let me join the bandwagon. This is where I make my 2-minute spiel on ApnaComplex, which is where we have a great, community management and rental management platform. So, that's what I just wanted to bring in so that none of you all forgot why I'm here. But jokes apart, Milind, 53% of real estate owners, and this is data from our research, feel that they do not have the in-house talent to adopt technology successfully. They would possibly have that IT guy who's possibly doing it. But the success of construction PropTech literally hinges on its adoption across various layers. Right from the construction guy to the engineer to the architect. How do you see this happening? I mean, that's a huge chasm to.
So this is a very interesting question. We started this, as I said, we started in COVID. And we started this entire data thing or developing the software for our own company. And what we've realized after using various softwares, every time something had to be done, then there was a data entry to be done by a separate kind of set of people. We realized that that's not integration. So what we did is we developed various different modules where each guy does his own job. For example, I'll give you a small example. If one guy on my site does a site completion certificate and takes a picture and puts it on the app, yeah? The moment it says completed and it's certified by a senior level guy, the buyer gets an intimation that you have an invoice for the 10% payment. Nice. It generates an automatic data certificate for the developer to withdraw the money from the bank. Because all the other verticals like the designer, like the architect, engineer, site engineer have certified, yes, this is complete, and only then it can be. So, what we are trying to provide is fragmented work for each guy, but the AI generates and integrates all of them. And it's like saying you have a PA next to you who is integrating with all of them digitally, automatically in a fraction of seconds, which otherwise people give the data to the next data entry fellow, he generates, and this takes another 7 days. It's a long process due. So at Stallion, we've realized that this is a folly. And when we use different kind of softwares, they were actually giving softwares for an ice cream industry put to a real estate industry. And it was just a change of few logos here and there. So here we've cracked that code, and we've realized that if you make it intuitive, if you make it easy for adoption, I think teams are adopting. And the most success lies in how they use it on an everyday basis.
Super. So, Shivani, in the pandemic, we saw the entire sales cycle move online. VR, AR, all of that happened. Everyone was glued to their Zoom sets, and aggregation platforms and transactional platforms had to move online. Are you seeing the same trend continue with extensive usage of AR and VR in possibly site selection and eventual conversion, or are you seeing more physical site-to-visit conversions physically?
COVID, I think, has permanently changed the nature of consumer behavior, especially in real estate. As we discussed earlier, it's one of the last industries to really accept technology and use it to its advantage. Today, when we are talking about customers going online, doing search and discovery, what they are essentially doing after that step is going to the broker and buying that property. I don't hear that happen in any other industry. Do you go to Amazon, check out a product and then call the vendor? Do you go on Swiggy and then call up the restaurant and tell them to deliver to you? No. You want end-to-end service. And today we've realized that the various market gaps that are getting filled after COVID are all catering to that end-to-end journey of the buyer. And COVID has, by 5 years, COVID single-handedly has expedited the tech adoption in India by 5 years. Now, how has that directly impacted real estate sales for developers and players like us is the openness, willingness to use technology at the core of it to see homes, vet homes. Everyone has realized if I can see homes virtually first, let me shortlist, save some time, and then go physically visit only the properties that I have liked very much. So today it's an interesting story. Our beta platform was up and we were promoting a project in Andheri East. We obviously weren't targeting any other market except Bombay, but somehow someone sitting in Hyderabad got to know that we are selling this property and we are exclusively putting it up on our platform, and you're able to book on the platform. This gentleman comes online and he has booked that property, paid the booking amount, sitting in Hyderabad for a 2 BHK in Andheri East. That is not imaginable without COVID. That is a change in behavior that has happened because we all started using Q-commerce for groceries. Today, someone that was earlier used to going to the market daily is using Zepto, is using Swiggy, Instamart. That same behavior, no matter what the purchase decision is, reflects even in property buying. But of course, in addition to this, what you have to identify is that's not enough. Seeing online, seeing it virtually and then booking online, That's not enough. You need touch and feel. Everyone is not buying remotely. People are buying to live themselves. So then that's how an army of relationship managers is created, at least with BLOX, where you come online, you see online, and dedicatedly, no matter what you like, you're taken to do the site visits physically. And first, people are looking at the virtual tours. We create digital twins for our project. Once you see the digital twin, you're getting the whole experience. Today in India, the adoption of VR headsets is not massive. So particularly, I don't think that AR and VR have immense adoption. However, virtual tours, 3D renders, and digital twins of projects are proving to be highly essential as sales tools today. And again, that is a post-pandemic process where all of us had to find a way to do things from our bed and chairs.
Superb, and I believe this would also bring down the CAC for you.
Absolutely, and there are, today when you're going D2C, one of the most important problems to solve is intelligent lead generation. Because at the end of the day, if you're going directly to the buyer, we don't have what the broker has, which is Ramesh Bhai is one phone call away, right? We need to identify these people in the market and throw a wider net and then shortlist from that. Sure. So yes, intelligent lead generation is the method to do that. And seeing the willingness by the customer, the CAC does go down and the conversions are better today than they were before.
Oh, super. So a couple of interesting questions now, which is going to open up to all. And this is the best one, right? I mean, what all of us try to open up organizations and found organizations for investor interest. We've seen a lot of investor interest in edutech and fintech and some of the other techs which are there. But what's holding back the investor interest in real estate on the PropTech side?
Okay, so on the PropTech side, what we realized that it's a scalability and going to the masses. So right now we are catering to only developers, right? So we are actually slowly developing a platform which is not just B2B but B2C. We are developing a whole platform for digital building materials. Like if you go to Amazon, you can't buy few taps, but you can't buy tiles, you can't buy cement, or you can't buy anything like that. And there's no such industry or app right now which is providing a digital marketplace to the end user. So once you come to scalability and marketability and going to the end consumer, these kind of solutions I think will lead to a huge flow of number of people you can connect, and then the boom or the investors' confidence will come in.
Okay, great. What about you, Garima? What's holding back investor interest, at least on the commercial building automation side? I mean, is there investor interest, first of all? Is there? And if not, what would actually take?
So there has been such a lack of investor interest because of a bunch of things that at least I've seen, because I worked only in startups my whole life, whatever it has been. Initially, I was a part of OYO, which grew at breakneck speed. Then I was a part of Momsco, which had the biggest D2C exit, and everybody was wanting to fund us in the companies. But I think with real estate, the problem is, first of all, as we already discussed, one is scale, and nothing has been disrupted yet. So the scale only comes when the broader basic problems are addressed. Now, till now, a lot of PropTech companies which we have seen, they solve smaller problems for a fewer people. But when you need to address large problems, you need to create solutions and scale for that. Second is, because of this scale, there is also a high capital requirement, unlike a lot of industries. You cannot run your company just on a meager seed funding because you are looking to either cover up an entire residential portfolio or a commercial portfolio or a mix of that, and it becomes very difficult after a point. For me, for example, because we also make hardware, the capital requirements are even more intensive, and a lot of investors probably do not even understand that part. Only when we see our Western counterpart addressing PropTech today is when still people are talking a little more about it. Because generally, investment is all about what will I make on the return, and real estate is a very long-term game. For even the real estates to appreciate in value, it takes a very long time. So for the solutions to scale, it's going to take a long time. There is a waiting period, but the returns are unbound in that case. The market is educating itself a little bit now, and also investors hold back because they think that these users are not sticky enough. when it's a D2C company, they know, okay, you know, you'll have an app download and suddenly you will have 100 million app downloads like the Chat GPT. That's never going to work for real estate. You might get 1 million users in 5 years, but then they're going to stick around. The AOV is really high. So I believe few things which have not worked out till now, but I think that gives a lot of leeway for people to invest in companies which are now making the building blocks of solving the actual problems around the real estate.
Super. What about you, Aryaman? You'll be seeing a lot of investor interest.
Well, I think investor interest is actually a function of what the investor can see. For example, let's say 15 years ago, if I went to a VC and I told them to invest in a D2C business, especially let's say in the food space, they'd probably think I'm crazy. But today, D2C is the flavor of the season, right? I mean, everyone is taking positions in D2C. Similarly with, EdTech. EdTech initially was a very tough space to raise funds in. I mean, let's say 5-6 years ago. Today, EdTech is, through the roof. So I think it takes, investors need to see a roadmap. They need to see a proof of concept prior to understand where this idea can go. And maybe not exactly same idea, but, the general direction. I honestly don't think today that there's a dearth of capital around PropTech. And I think a lot of the interest is also generated from ANAROCK, if I'm not mistaken. But I do think that entities which are coming up, which are focusing on PropTech, we are seeing a lot of consolidation, foreign investor interest. I mean, Westbridge, I think, has started taking aggressive positions in Indian PropTech, which is in itself a testament, to the entire sector. But yeah, I don't think there's as such any dearth of capital as of now.
That's quite a divergent view, but that's good to know. What about you, Shivani? You've been in the first stage of PropTech.
So I think that the investor interest in BLOX was always on the vision and the kind of scale that BLOX wants to achieve. And like he said, if there is a company that fills the criteria also of the investors, they're looking for either scale or they're looking for a PAT positive business, but if they are looking for scale and if you're able to give it to them, I think the investors are around.
Any last words?
No, I think all of us have spoken quite a lot. We need to
Can we get more volume on the mic?
Make it B2C.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It was very interesting to hear your views. I have a fair bit more questions which we can do in the meeting room. But I guess it's time to end the panel. Thank you for your views. Let's see if we have any questions, if there are any.
No, apologies, we cannot. We've already gone over time.
Yeah,
and
so some of us are hanging around. If there are any questions, we are happy to take them offline.
Thank you so much. And on that note, if I could have the editor, Realty Plus, Sapna Srivastava, to kindly join us and help us in the felicitation. Firstly, ladies and gentlemen, could we have a huge round of applause for our entire panel? Thank you so much, Mr. Jacob, for curating this so wonderfully for us. And with that, if I may request, and if I could have first up Shivani to step forward along with Sapna. Thank you so much, Shivani, for your valuable time. Thank you so much, Milind. Thank you, Milind. Thank you, Garima. Yes. Thank you so much, Aryaman. And of course, a big thank you to Mr. Jacob. Shajai, thank you so much for joining us. And with that, if I may request all our panelists to come together along with Sapna for a group photograph. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. An excellent start to a great conclave ahead. Thank you once again to all our eminent panelists. And of course, they're open to networking as to their schedules. But we have to value the time of all our speakers and move on to the next one. Thank you again, Shajai, for curating it so wonderfully. Thank you so much. God bless.